Good morning. Let's go ahead and finish the rest of our story, Jacob's answer. Now, today we're going to find out if he does get his question answered. Remember, his question was basically that question at the top of page 179 in your book. The one that said, if there was, it says, was there really a God who was greater than Dagon? If there was, then why was Samson in prison, and why were the Philistines having a feast to celebrate his capture? That was his main question. Was there a God greater than Dagon? And if so, why is Samson in jail? Or why do we have him captive? So we're going to find out today. Actually, if you'll look at page 180 at the very top, the title of this section is called The Answer. So we're going to assume that he's going to go ahead and get his answer today. Before we start, let's look at a few words we're going to come across. This first sentence says, the lumberjack's hands had become calloused from his years of swinging an axe. That means his hands were rough and they had rough skin over them. When you do something with your hands over and over again, even if you play the guitar, your fingertips will become hard and calloused. Dad threaded his way between the people in the crowd. That kind of means that he just kind of weaved his way through all these people. The explosion of the car avenged the criminal on his enemies. Avenge, that means like to get revenge. The girl tightly clutched the coins her mother gave her. Clutched means to hold something very tightly. All right, so let's go ahead and look at page 180. Now remember, we talked yesterday about the reason that Samson was in the prison. Now it was a consequence of his disobedience, number one. But number two, it wasn't just a punishment. God allowed this for a particular reason. He had something better in mind, and he had to have Samson in jail, and it just happened this way. So today we're going to read about and find out if Jacob got his answer and what it was. So let's look at page 180. Make sure you read along with me, just like you're reading. Jacob heard shouts of laughter from a group of splendidly dressed men and women and edged toward them. When he saw what he saw, made his heart sink. There was Samson. He had been brought from the prison house, and everyone was making fun of him. Priests, soldiers, and even that beautiful lady they called Delilah. After a few moments, Jacob heard one of the priests calling, "Here, boy, lead him over there so the people on the roof can see him too." Jacob timidly edged forward through the laughing, pushing people, and took Samson's arm. "Samson, just go with me. I'll show you the way." "Jacob, my boy." Samson's calloused hands touched Jacob's shoulders. "I forgot. You are a temple boy. Poor lad." Jacob's eyes filled with tears. Somehow Samson understood what there was to fear and hate in the temples. "Where are you taking me?" Samson whispered. "To the middle of the hall where the pillars are." As they threaded their way through the crowd, Jacob decided that he had to ask, "Samson?" "Yes, boy." "Samson, please don't be angry, but I must know. If your God is so powerful, why are you here in Dagon's temple with everyone laughing at you? And why did your God let them put your eyes out?" Samson sighed and hesitated so long that Jacob was afraid he wouldn't answer. Finally he said, "Jacob, God is not just powerful. He's holy. He'll not let his people do wrong without being punished. I disobeyed him. I joined myself to the Philistines, even though I knew their wickedness." Unseeing, he raised a hand and gestured around him at the people and priest. In the harsh light from the torches, Jacob thought they looked twice as cruel. "And because of that, I'm now suffering. Oh, how I am suffering." "But you told me that God loves you and all his people." "Oh, he does, he does. And so he punishes us, not like the priests punish you by being cruel. God drives us back to himself. I was very far from him, Jacob. He has had to drive me back very hard indeed to return me to himself. Can you understand that?" "Yes." "I demanded in my heart to live among the pagan Philistines and be a part of them, and now I am. Now I know how evil I was." Howling and laughter rose around them again. "And yet your God will accept you?" Jacob asked. "Yes. And I have repented for my wrongdoing. Soon I'll be with him. All my blindness will be past." His big, rough hands patted Jacob's head. God listens to those who truly ask his forgiveness. Someday he will send his Messiah who will be able to make us right with God. By now the two had reached the center of the great feasting hall. Jacob shrank back from the eyes of all the people. They were looking, laughing. "Are we in the middle of the hall?" Samson asked him. "Yes." The words stuck in Jacob's throat. "I'm sorry, Samson." But Samson wasn't listening. "O Lord God, remember me, I pray thee, and strengthen me, I pray thee, only this once, O God, that I may be at once avenged of the Philistines for my 2 eyes. Then Samson clutched Jacob's shoulder. "Jacob, take me to the pillars that support the roof, and then go home quickly. God is going to give me strength as he did in the past. I will show that he is alive and that he is the only true God. Always remember what I've told you about him, and remember that he loves you too." The look on Samson's face frightened Jacob. He dared not disobey. After leading Samson to one of the pillars, he hurried to the entrance of the hall and fled down the steps toward the road leading home. Then he paused and turned. What could one old blind man do in the temple of Dagon? Suddenly, he heard Samson's voice, loud above the noise of the festivities. "Now let me die with the Philistines." Die? With the Philistines? Suddenly, the great slab walls of the temple shook and then buckled with a terrific roar that knocked Jacob to the ground. The roof of the temple caved in. Jacob hid his head in his arm until the thunderous crash subsided. Then there was nothing but silence. He looked up and saw a cloud of dust rising over the mass of fallen stone where the temple had been. Jacob had his answer about the God of Israel. Who but a living, all-powerful God could bring such defeat to his enemies? And though through just one man, a man who wouldn't have to suffer anymore. All right, so there's the end of it. That's what happened. So let's go back and ask just a few questions. We're going to ask some questions starting on page 180. So when Jacob first enters into the temple, what does he see? It hurts him. What does he see? He sees men and women dressed up, laughing, making fun of Samson. How does the author let you know that Jacob is not happy about it? It says at the very first part of page 180, what he saw made his heart sink. That's the author's way of saying that he just went, oh, just made him feel horrible. Look at page 181. Why does Jacob ask the question, "And yet your God will accept you"? I think he's surprised that Samson's God, the true God, forgives even after he was disobedient. How is the true God different from Dagon? Well, first and foremost, the true God is real. Dagon was false. He was made up, made by men, right? That was the main thing. But the other is God's merciful, forgiving. Dagon did nothing but have the priest hurt people. Of course, he wasn't real. That's what they thought. What does Samson mean when he says that he will soon be with God and his blindness will be past? He knows he's fixing to die, doesn't he? And he's going to go to heaven, then he's going to be with the Lord. Has God sent the Messiah that Samson was talking about? Because remember at the top of page 180 it says someday he will send his Messiah who will be able to make us right with God. Has God already done that? Who is it? Jesus Christ was the Messiah that he was talking. Remember, this happened in the Old Testament. So this happened before Jesus had even been on the earth. And Samson knew that one day he would come, and he was telling him that. How does Christ make us right with God? We've sinned, correct? And so Christ has paid the penalty for our sin. It's already been paid, and we just have to trust in that. Do you think Jacob knows what Samson's going to do? I don't think he does. Look at the last page, 182. How did Samson show that he cared about Jacob? He wanted him to get out, didn't he, before it all happened? What kind of look does Samson have on his face that frightens Jacob? What do you think? I'm not sure because he didn't have eyes. Samson's eyes had been taken out. So I don't know. Maybe it was his mouth. Maybe he had something around his eyes like a bandage and it was just his mouth. And maybe he could tell he was kind of trembling maybe. I don't know. How were the walls of the temple brought down? God gave Samson strength, physical strength, as well as inward strength. Do you think Jacob now believes that God is greater than Dagon? At the bottom of page 182, the very last paragraph on the right-hand side where it says Jacob had his answer, read that paragraph out loud. That's pretty powerful, right? Okay, let's talk about what's going to be on your work text page today. Now, it's going to be work text page 74, and I'm going to grade it. Now, I'm going to grade it for double the points, so I'm grading it for 14 points because I'm grading based on if you have a complete sentence and if your answer's correct, okay? I know these are not your favorite. Writing answers in complete sentences are never anybody's favorite, but I need to make sure that you understand the story. Okay, but before we do that, let's talk about a word. And the word is, I'm going to put it right up here. It's actually on your page. Do you know what this word is? It's the word motive. Let's talk about the word motive. Why do people do the things they do? We do some things because it's practical or it makes sense to them, right? Why do you eat? Well, your motive for eating is because you're hungry. Why do you wash your hands before you eat? Well, your motive for washing your hands before you eat is to clean any germs off your hands so they don't get in your mouth, right? Okay. Well, sometimes people do certain things because of their personality or maybe their perspective of things. Why do thieves steal? They're greedy, they're selfish, they're bad guys. Why do gentlemen hold open doors for girls and women? Manners, courtesy, that kind of thing. Why does a mother hold the hand of her young child when she's crossing the street? Because she loves her child and doesn't want them to get hurt, right? Christians should look to the Bible for the motive of their actions. So why do you obey your parents? What's your motive? Well, it should be to obey God because it's His commandment, correct? Why do you do your best in school? Or do you? Your motive should be to obey God because if you do well in school, you're obeying your parents. If you're obeying your parents, you're obeying God. So the reason a person or character does something is called a motive. The reason why they do something. We should always check our motives and make sure our motives are good motives and pure motives. Why are you doing something just to get something for yourself? Well, if you are, that's greedy. Your motive should be that of a good and pure heart, which is hard for us to do. Okay, your assignment is to do page 74 in your work text. Make sure you have complete sentences and I'm going to grade it. Okay, that's all for today.